Okay, we talked about something that is likely to affect you. The tax identification number.
Yeah.
No. Yes.
Yes. Number.
Tax ID. Well, now some of you will think that's TIN. Tax identification number. There are two different individuals. There's TIN, there's tax ID.
Yes.
Both of them are tax numbers. But one is for corporate organizations and one is for individuals. So the tax ID mandate for opening bank accounts is set to take effect from January 1, 2026. That's how many months away? Well, less than 4 months away.
Yeah, less than 4.
And it's said to be a significant reform aimed at expanding Nigeria's tax net and improving revenue collection. This requirement, part of the Nigerian Tax Administration Act, signed into law by President Bola Tinubu, will make it compulsory for individuals and businesses to obtain a tax ID to access banking and financial services.
And I think this covers both Nigerians and non-Nigerians.
Nigerians and non-Nigerians. But then there is also the opinion that this particular tax ID initiative is not new. Question: how come it's sounding new?
Where has it been?
Exactly. Now, I did some search. I found out that we have been paying taxes since before independence. No, since before colonization. And then there is something they call Ishakole. Do you know what Ishakole is? Oh, gosh. Okay, don't worry. Well, we'll get into all of that in the conversation with two gentlemen joining us this morning. Dr. Chris David is here with us. He's a chartered accountant and tax expert, as well as an author and authority in the area of tax. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, and good morning, Nigerians.
Yeah, and a member of the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee will also join us in our Abuja studio shortly. But let's begin from here. Dr. David, you say, like other people, I know that's one of the opinions you hold, that this whole tax ID number initiative is not new. Where has it been? I'm taking Shola Joker's question. Where has it been?
Okay, yeah, just like you rightly said, the tax ID, TIN number, or PR ID, they are not new. They have been in existence. And the truth is that currently, if you want to open a bank account, they will ask for your tax ID.
Now?
Yeah, including your BVN or...
Since when?
And yeah, it's ongoing.
When I opened my bank account, how many decades ago? They didn't ask me.
That's decades ago.
Oh.
Yeah, but currently, if you want to open a bank account or you want to have an investment, maybe within an insurance company or an asset management company, one of the information they will ask you to provide is your tax ID. Now, I think the misconception is about the news headlines that you see on newspapers and probably some of the people that are creating content online. I saw in one newspaper, I say, no tax ID, no bank account. You understand? So, and when they put such kind of headlines, you know, how many people really do read the details of the law? So you expect this kind of reaction. But
well, before I go to our Abuja studio, who do we blame for the fact that we didn't know about this law? Or rather, it's not as pronounced as it is supposed to be. We understand that this whole tax ID thing has been an initiative of government since like 2012.
Yes.
So how come we don't know about it?
Well, in two ways. If you don't know about it, it suggests that you are not actually paying your taxes. That is one way to look at it. Then secondly, what it means is that the agencies involved, that is the tax authorities, need to do more tax education and enlightenment.
Okay. Dr. Chukwuemeka joins us from our Abuja studio. He is a member of the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Now, there are those who have thought, yes, I know that Dr. Edele has also put out a statement trying to explain that this whole initiative is not new. Why is it now so prominent, particularly in this whole tax reforms process, at a time when Nigerians are already crying, hey, 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 over all of the taxes and levies that they have to pay?
Thank you, Ayo. I want to first correct, I was a member of the Presidential Committee up till last year. So as we speak today, I'm no longer a member of the committee. So, but let's get to the outcry over the tax ID. Like the speaker in Lagos said, that it is not new since the Finance Act 2019, which took effect 13 February 2020, Section 49 of PITA was amended to accommodate the mandatory application of the tax ID, although then it was called TIN, Taxpayers Identification Number. It had always been in operation, but there is something new. What is new is that it is more detailed, the provisions are more detailed. Currently, sections 4 to 9, that is part 2 of the Nigeria Tax Administration Act 2025, provides extensively for the registration both by locals and non-residents, individuals and corporate entities, the use of it, the mandatory, voluntary and involuntary registration, then the coverage, and when there are changes in particulars of taxpayers. These detailed provisions had they were not in the previous law. So that's what is new. But besides, Section 100 of the Nigeria Tax Administration Act provides for administrative penalty, whereof if a person who is supposed to obtain it fails to do so, or mandatorily registered by the relevant tax authority, that the first month, the person will pay 50,000 naira, and each of the subsequent months, the person will pay 25,000 naira. For instance, if somebody fails to register before January, the person will pay 50,000 naira for non-registration in January. Assuming the person did not register in February, 25,000, March, 25,000. If the person eventually registers in April, the person will be paying administrative penalty of 100,000 naira. So this was not the provision in the previous act. So we can take it off from here if you want to hear more.
Right, thank you. But I'd like to ask our guest in Lagos this part of the question. Is, one would think, we've said it's not new. We have less than 6 months to the implementation. Just like the national identification number, one would think that there will now be hurried actions by Nigerians to register. So what's the difference now? What makes the difference? We know that one is a tax number, that the TIN is number, and then the ID is identification. What difference does it make? Why do we suddenly need this ID? Why can't we just go with what we're doing before?
Okay, there is no difference. So, like my colleague in Abuja detailed the provisions in the tax law quite extensively. Why you have that provision is to provide for an avenue to harmonize, to have the Joint Revenue Board to harmonize all the various tax IDs. For instance, in Lagos State, we call it taxpayer ID. That's for individuals. And so several states have different IDs. So with this new law, we'll expect that the Joint Revenue Board should be able to harmonize so that all of these numbers can you can have uniform numbers. So I think the job really rests on the tax authority rather than the individuals. Just like he was saying that there are penalties for non-registration. That is when, if you are a taxable person and you are supposed to register, you didn't register. But from what I've been getting, when we say tax ID, it encompasses so many things like your NIN number can actually be your tax ID. So if, for instance, the Joint Tax Board adopts the NIN, that, okay, this is the number we're going to be using as tax ID going forward. So you don't need to go and be registering for another tax ID. Okay. So that means so many people already have the tax ID.
So, but there is no certainty that that's the policy right now. Yes,
but I think that should be what the Joint Revenue Board.
Before you even go to this issue of collecting taxes, Dr. Eze, why must Nigerians be additionally labored? Already we have been told that in this whole tax thing, from next year, from January 1, 2026, we will start paying 5% surcharge on fuel. Now we're hearing that we're going to be paying taxes, individual taxes. In fact, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, micro, nano businesses will also have tax IDs and they will pay taxes. It is only natural to expect that that tax is going to come as additional cost of the products and services that people are going to be getting from them. So why must Nigerians be additionally burdened?
All right, thank you so much. Taxation is not additional burden per se. There is no country in the world where taxes are not paid. It is the way it is administered that will determine whether it is a burden or not, and the rates applied. Now, one of the fundamentals of a social contract between the citizenry and those in government is taxation. If you look at the ingredients of sovereignty, you need to have a defined geographical setup. You need to maintain law and order, and there has to be taxation among others. So I wonder any country of the world that, whether direct or indirect or both, taxation that doesn't apply it. So Nigerians have been paying taxes. I listened to your introduction. Definitely taxation is not new. So from what the Tax Reform Act, one of the things it has achieved is to expand the tax base. When you heard the government saying, okay, our tax to the GDP ratio being around 10.8%, we intend making it at least 18%. It's either you introduce new taxes and overburden those already paying, or to maintain what is already being paid, but to expand the net so as to plug leakages. So I think the government has, by introducing the tax ID, just trying to block leakages and expand the tax net. So those who have not been paying, for instance, if you're a company now, from 1st January, and you engage in transaction with a taxable person, and that person doesn't have a tax ID, the penalty is 5 million naira. This wasn't so before. It is these changes that makes it like what we say new. So it is expected that, as you know, Section 24 subsection F of the Constitution places a duty on the citizenry to pay their income taxes promptly. So it's already a duty. It is now for the citizens to leverage on the importance of representation. It is high time they should begin to ask the politicians, what are your tax policies? Let me know whether to vote for you. The era of voting for people without asking about fiscal questions, asking fiscal questions, it should be gone, because every person will feel the heat.
Then, first of all, the people have to, first of all, understand the importance of fiscal policies or whatever on their lives. But let me ask a question for you, Dr. David. Samuel Olonikadi is asking, will students be required to have tax ID when they do not earn any income?
Okay, I'll answer that question, but the question you asked him, I need to make some clarifications, because those are the misconceptions we are having. You said 1st January there's going to be 5% surcharge. That is not entirely correct. So it's not going to start 1st January, but it's in the law that at a particular time when the Minister of Finance deem it fit, then he will issue an order.
Will we ever get a notice that that is going to happen?
Yes, that's going to happen.
Because according to the law that the president has signed,
yes,
once it has been signed to take up at a particular time, we have heard
there's
the
a
federal
provision.
government has said
yes,
it will not take up immediately. But it is a law.
Yes, well, if you read that law, that's why you have experts. If you read that law, there's a provision, there's a section that said that the Minister of Finance will issue an order at a particular time. But in my own opinion, I don't think that surcharge should be applicable in Nigeria. Nigeria is an oil-producing nation. Whether in 1st January or in future, that law, that tax should not come into effect.
So you are asking for an amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
So now let me answer the question. So the question talks about students.
Yes.
Now, the tax law did not talk about status of people. Rather, it talks about a taxable person. So who is a taxable person? Is a taxable person is someone that engages in any economic activities and earns income. So if you earn an income,
For instance, if you are a content creator, and you are earning income from your content.
Yes. So you are a taxable person. So that's what the law says.
Okay.
So it's not about student and all that. Okay. So a taxable person, you engage in economic activities and you earn income, then you become.
What is, if it's very informal, like you have some students who do all sorts of things to survive, apart from content creation. For instance, when I went to school, on our corridors, there used to be a lot of people that make people's hair, that, do different things just to add to whatever their parents or what have you are giving them. They are earning money, but, I mean, those ones will not be taxed.
Okay, so it's difficult when you have to explain tax on TV like this. So, there are provisions in the tax law. It's not that for every kobo you make, you start paying. So now, you must have also heard that if you earn 800,000 naira, you will not pay tax. Those kind of provisions. So that is talking about your taxable income. So you have what is called your gross, then deduct some allowances and all that. One of them is the rent relief. So if your taxable income, that is gross minus all those deductions, is 800,000, then you will not still pay tax. But if it is above that, then that is when you begin to pay. So
there is income and then there is taxable income.
Yes.
Okay. Samuel, I hope you got that. Well, this one for you. This one is for you, Dr. Eze. It says it's from Adewale Fakoya, who is asking, please help ask the guests if retirees will be affected by this new problem. That's the way he put it. Despite the fact that they faint or die on the queue while waiting for their meager pensions, will they be subjected to registration for tax ID, which they have for their payroll while in active service?
The position of the law is that every taxable person will have a tax ID.
Are retirees
Like,
taxable?
Yes, they are taxable persons if they earn income. The issue is not whether one is a retiree, the issue is whether one earns income. So if a retiree does not earn income, it will show in the retiree's bank account.
Is
for
a pension?
instance,
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, pension is tax exempt. Like my colleague in Lagos said, there are items that are tax exempt, like pension, like National Housing Fund contribution, life assurance, annuity, then rent up to 500,000 naira. If these eligible deductions are made, so it is not whether one is retiree or whether one is unemployed. I give you an example. Somebody might say, I'm unemployed, but he has a brother in UK that every month he sends 5 million naira to his account. So how will he convince anybody that is unemployed? He doesn't keep records. He will only say so verbally. So that's why one has to be careful. That's why there are compliance mechanisms. So if you don't want to fall into the circle of those whose income will be classified as taxable income, you have a lot of records to keep. So beyond having tax ID, because when you have tax ID, it only means that software technology can be used to identify your account.
Right, sorry.
Those at the General Revenue Board can use their technology, key in your tax ID, and they can view your account and know what happens. So
yes.
It's not necessarily what you say.
Yes, Mr. Eze, I think you've covered quite a lot, but as part of the concern of the person asking that question is, for the retirees, is that do they have to now go and start queuing just to get registered again in order to have a tax ID? They're already going through a lot.
No, they don't need to queue. The retirees have national identification number that constitutes, even before retirement, they had tax ID. If they didn't have, they have national identification number. You will stay in your room if you don't have and get it online. So it doesn't require going anywhere to queue to get tax ID. So that's the answer.
Okay, Dr. David, I know you stated this earlier, but Festus Akimboyewa is asking, would an NIN serve as our new tax ID? You've answered that already.
He said he's not, he was just giving the suggestion.
A suggestion, but
sure.
and even Dr. Eze has said the same thing, so maybe that's also in consideration. But then he's asking, how would the new tax law and tax ID affect Nigerians abroad and their investments in Nigeria, like investments in treasury bills and stocks? Would it not discourage diaspora remittances?
No, that's not true. In fact, those in outside the country, you cannot do anything without a tax ID. For instance, in the UK, you have this, what is called the National Insurance number, NI number. You can't carry out any transactions without that number. So abroad, the use of tax ID is well established. Now, we must also know that since the signing of the law, signing the bills into law in June, we have a 6-month gap for implementation. And I know they are currently working on the implementation, and before December, there will be guidelines on what should be the tax ID. And I'm thinking that the NIL will be one of the numbers, or should be the number that we should adopt as a tax ID.
Kolade Fash is asking you a question, and you, Dr. Eze. Please ask, and this is on YouTube, what are we benefiting from government as citizens? We pay children's school fees, provide water by ourselves, no good medical facilities, no security, and we must pay tax for them to share.
So that question should be directed at the politician or his representative, starting from the councillor in his ward.
But you are a tax expert, Dr. David. One of the arguments that I would expect.
So if I'm going to answer him, I'm going to provide a theoretical answer to say, okay, these are the uses for your taxes. For instance, provision of amenities, lights, good roads, security, and all that. Those are what taxes are meant to provide. But the other side is the money being generated from taxes, are they judiciously used? That question I cannot answer.
So let me ask Dr. Eze. Dr. Eze, this is one of the challenges of taxation until now. I remember, I think it was in the Fashola days, you would see while roads are being mended or constructed, you see that sign on the road, taxpayers,
money at work.
Money at work. Always there. Now, it would seem like we don't even know what the taxes are for right now. And this is not a state law. This is a federal law. This is a law that is going to affect every part of Nigeria. And it would seem like beside the function of the committee that you served on and the people that are working in that committee as at now, is a challenge of communicating to people that now, with this new tax regime, you can trust us.
Thank you. The question is a legitimate one, but it's a political question. Certainly such question is not usually answered by tax administrators, because these are people sent on errand. And who sent them on errand? The politicians that the people have voted for. Out of the 4 purposes of taxation, which are revenue, representation, reprising, and redistribution, the burden of revenue, reprising, and redistribution is directly on the government. But the burden of representation lies with the people. So if the people who choose who to represent them without asking them these legitimate questions, when it's time for campaigns, the people ask questions around other things like which district will the person come from, which ethnicity, which tribe, which religion. Nobody goes to market with any of these things. They do not ask questions about what rate of taxes will you collect, will you introduce more taxes. So, like my colleague said, the politicians at all levels, from the local government to the state government, people in the state legislature, they should sign petitions and send to them and tell them to explain these things. People in the National Assembly, governors, and the president, these are the people that can answer these questions. Experts can only give expert opinion. They cannot answer political questions correctly.
Okay, well, it will not stop Nigerians from asking that question, but there's another one. This one is from Clifford Ofegbo, who says, if a retired person can pay tax with the money his children are giving him, because you said that the other time, that someone is sitting down and they just send 5 million naira to him every month, and you are saying that that is taxable because it's not income. What about those that don't have anyone to give him at that old age? Will government start enrollment for aged people with no income and help?
Certainly the account statement will explain.
Okay. That's the short answer.
Of the tax ID.
Well, someone is saying...
The account statement will explain.
Okay, there's someone is saying that this one is especially for you, and it's coming back from Mr. Fakoya. He says, the Abuja gets this to clarify if subvention to aged parents will be taxed when the mega pensions are not paid as and when due. Would this not be double wahala for dead body? That's the way he put this question.
I acknowledge the concerns, but you see, emotion and some sentimental issues. As a lawyer, as a tax lawyer, I prefer approaching matters from point of law and leave the sentiments that go with it for an emotion for others. So definitely, although taxation ought to have a human face, and I think that's the more reason why not every income is taxed. It is not every income is taxed, but compliance is key. The era of, remember that Section 29 of the Nigeria Tax Act provides for presumptive tax regulations. And the minister is to make that presumptive tax regulations. All those that don't keep records that are in the informal sector, a provision has been made for them that the minister will make regulations where they can pay pittance, not necessarily these rates that are contained in the fourth schedule to the Nigeria Tax Act. So from the person's question, by the time I say this, the person will get the answer from it. So for those who make little money, it is now to put pressure on the Minister of Finance to make the presumptive tax regulations so that the burden of making, keeping records by those in the informal sector will not cause them any problem. Recall that in the Personal Income Tax Act of 2011, we also had presumptive tax regulations in Section 36 or Section 6 of that Act. And up till now, the minister did not make those regulations.
Right.
So it is not for the informal sector to ensure, and the media to ensure that it will not be so this time around.
All right.
The minister should quickly make those regulations so that those in the informal sector will breathe.
Right. Time's almost up. Let me just ask you this, one of our final questions here. How will the taxpayer ID, which is the tax identification number given by subnationals, now case in point now is the Lagos state government and perhaps other state governments, as the tax ID aligned with the one that's going to be given when registration takes place?
In other words, can states give tax IDs?
And then you have national level.
So when I started earlier, I talked about the Joint Revenue Board. Okay. Now, the Joint Revenue Board is the body where both the tax authority at the federal and the states, that is where they meet. Okay. And that's why I said during this implementation period, I expect them to issue a guideline to say, okay, this is what we are adopting as the tax ID. So different states will not be issuing different tax ID. So it's going to be one tax ID as determined by that body. So if they say, okay, probably maybe what Lagos State is using is acceptable, then every other person should adopt that. Okay. But like I said, I think the NIN is the universal or more common number that they should adopt.
Okay. Well, you both have said that you're not answering political questions, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And it is from Steve Black. Says, why are people always quick to compare UK and America when the government wants to take from the masses without telling them? Without telling themselves that those places don't have corruption like ours. Well, I don't agree with that one. How much do our politicians earn? They don't compare to what the politicians earn abroad. Again, it's a political question. We don't want to answer it.
You don't want to answer.
Okay.
So can't go.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. Dr. Chris David is a chartered accountant, futurist, tax expert, and author. We appreciate your time this morning, as well as Chukwemeka Eze, former member, Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee. We appreciate your time and thoughts as well.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.